All right, let's see. So this is for Amanda. I'm going to show you how to merge a skull onto your base object. I'm using a skull that I had downloaded online. It's very similar to yours. So this is the one that you had found right here, and I can send you the one that I have right here. And I just got it from, I think, CG Trader. So the nice thing about this one though is it already had stuff welded together, so I didn't have to worry about it too much. I can go in and weld and fill in some things, and I do make some edits, but that's about it. I can send you the file later or a link. All right, so coming here, first thing I did was here we are. Let's hide these. The first thing I did was I brought in my model, and I brought in your base model. I went ahead and subdivided it just because I wanted to just I want to weld these together. So let's turn off dynamic subdivision. So I probably need to subdivide it up a few. So I'm going to weld these together using booleans, right? So what I did was, in order for the booleans to work, I was going to re-extrude the interior. So you could probably do it a different way. One way you could do it is to like trim off like the back of the head and just insert it a little bit so it sits right into the wall but doesn't go through the other side, right? Because then you're going to get some weird interior stuff on the other side. So it's up to you. Because when you do a boolean, what it does is any closed meshes, right? Like this closed mesh, it will empty out anything but inside of it, which is good, right? Or it's what I want for my purposes. But if you were using a version of your glass bottle, let's see if I can duplicate this. And let's go ahead and go to the original one. Oops. Pull this down, go to the original one. And I'll just pull it back to the beginning. Let's see. So if I click on solo, so here's your glass bottle. And then if I go here, let's go ahead and I'm just going to select half of this. Oops, turn off symmetry, select half of it. So what would matter here is if, let's turn that off, that the skull would, you can see the skull is, it's kind of in the way. Let's see. I'll just push it back. So you can see the skull is, there we go. All right, so you can see the skull goes all the way through, right? So this, when I boolean these together with this version of the mesh, that bottle will delete everything that's kind of like inside the bottle, right? So inside the bottle means between its meshes, right? Because this is a hollow, empty part, and not, but it has faces on the inside. That's not the inside of the mesh. This is still the outside of the mesh. So this part right here would still be there. So what you could do is, if you didn't want to go through this whole rigmarole that I'm about to go through and not worry about the inside, you could just delete and like cut this off. And one way you could do that is you. I don't want to make this too complicated, but let's see. I might end up doing it though. So let's see. All right, so let's go ahead and bring this one back. All right, so we'll try that one actually. So, okay, we're gonna try that. So first thing I'm gonna do is, let's go ahead and, I'm gonna clone this. So I'm gonna copy tool. Don't worry, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing this because I have all that extra stuff down there that I wanna hold on to. So I'm just gonna delete all this stuff now that I don't need it. There we go. All right. So I got my glass bottle, I got my skull. I position my skull the way I want it. You can see that it's like got a lot of depth to it, right? So, you know, I would have to like, if I wanted to like get a lot of the details, I would have to push it out a lot, which would look kind of weird. So what I ended up doing was just actually kind of squashed it down in the Z-axis, and after a second, it doesn't look that odd. And then I've just pushed it out as far as I felt was like good. Okay, so I did something like that. What I probably would do is on this, sorry, on the skull here, what I also did was I just went ahead and used clay. So I'm just using clay. Mine's really low right now. Pull that clay up, and I'm just kind of like filling in that gap right there. There we go. And then we can just smooth that out a little bit, just so I don't get that like super flat on the inside. Another thing I probably would do is this is going to be like thin glass too, which could be cool, could be what you want, but if not, then what I would also do is just fill in that area right there. So we'll just go insert, sphere. It's going to scale this down. I turned off perspective. I'm not working in perspective. I don't need it's better not to work in perspective for this kind of thing. And let's see. And just to make my life easier, I'm going to change the color on this one. So I'll just set to red, fill object. Go back to white. And I'm just gonna push it back, and I know in here this is kind of like a hollow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of get this to penetrate through that area. So we're just gonna go ahead and pull it up to here. Make sure symmetry's turned on, and I'm just gonna go ahead and use my move tool, holding Alt. I'm just gonna kind of smooth that out. I'm just gonna pull this down to kind of fill in this bottom jaw area a little bit. Push that back up a little bit. Let's go and Dynamesh it because it's kind of got a weird topology to it. I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do is actually, let's subdivide it one time. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to go ahead and just barely push it in till it's just like right behind, oops, right behind the mesh, the skull mesh. And I'm not gonna worry about it too much. It's better if I kind of just let it be a little imperfect, especially if it spills through a little bit. That's probably better, to be honest. We'll just smooth that out a bit. And this is like supposed to be glass, so it's not going to be, we don't want all this detail anyways. I'm going to push this stuff back. I really don't want that in my final model. And similarly, I could also fill in this spot right here. It's up to you. It could cause us some problems later on, but for now, I'm going to just not worry about it right now. I'm going to get that back down again. Oops. Oops. Pull that out, smooth that down. Okay, cool. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is let's go to this glass bottle. We're gonna do that. We're gonna like cut it in half again, or only show half of it again. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna go ahead and Control Shift to select that, invert select that. Let's do Control Shift. I think it's S. Yeah, Control Shift S to shrink it down one, just because I want split directly in half. I'm also going to double side it so I can see the inside and outside. So first things first, really easy. I should probably just go ahead and fix, oh, and I probably need to fix something in the nose maybe, but I can't tell. Let's go ahead and go back to this red mesh. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull that up and I'm going to fill in that part and just barely get into the nose. All right, there we go. I just won't want to create like a complex cavity once I combine everything together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to push this in until it's not penetrating through the inside of the bottle. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the bottle. I'm going to bring everything back. I'm going to subdivide it once just because, this kind of stuff is going to be a lot easier if this was like a low res mesh, or is not a low res mesh. So let's go ahead and again, we're going to cut it in half. Just by using select, I'm doing Control Shift. So let's see. Shift F, Control Shift, Control Alt Shift to get rid of those guys. Let's Control Alt Shift to get rid of these guys. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. As much as I keep trying to make it perfect. Let's see. Control Shift right there. It'd be nice if there was a hotkey or something for just displaying half the model. Okay, cool. So now that the red one's kind of not penetrating through, I don't need to worry about the red one right now. Now we need to kind of cut all the parts that are going through the mesh for the skull. So what we're going to do is, there's a couple things we can do. First thing I'm going to do is, I might try this first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the skull, bring it down here. I'll duplicate the glass bottle, bring it down here as well. And let's bring it all back. So let's hide everything else for now. So now we just have the skull and we have the bottle, a copy of the bottle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put them both in a folder. So I'm going to go to New Folder. I'm going to call this one Boolean. And I'm going to drop in my skull and I'm going to put it above my bottle. So on these layers, they have Boolean operations. So by default, the Boolean is just merge. But then we could do also subtract. If I turn off polyfill, you can see that what I have is I have live booleans turned on. So whenever you turn on live booleans, which is found in the render tab, what it can do is whenever you do these boolean operations between these meshes, you can preview them in real time, right? So this is the part that's getting cut out from the mesh, right? So we're gonna do subtraction, but as you can see, well, actually this could be fine. We might do this actually. It's not cutting out everything, right? The nice thing about this is it's separating them because it's separating them, that's going to make it a lot easier for me to go ahead and just select this and delete it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and What I might do on the bottle, and this might be a little tricky to understand right now, but I might negatively inflate it just a little bit because that's going to guarantee that that front part. So when we boolean do the boolean operation between this and our bottle, I want this to weld on, and I don't want in there to be any like gaps or cause any problems. So usually that shouldn't be a problem, but what I might do is with this bottle, so if I press Shift F, I can see the bottle. If I use negative inflate, I like shrink it in, right? So, and this is just using a Boolean operation. Our true bottle's up here. So if I turn that polyframe off, if I inflate it, negative inflate it just a smidge, that might help ensure that that this front part still pokes through that mesh. Okay. Also, you can see there's a lot of faceting here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and on this bottle, I'm just going to subdivide it a few times. You can see it gets smoother. Okay. And then what I can do is I can take this and I can do Boolean folder. What that does, it's going to calculate it for a second. But what it's going to do is it's going to, you can see the stuff stays behind. But when I come down here, you can see even if I turn off Boolean, live Boolean, it actually applied that to the mesh, right? So it actually did a Boolean operation. So what I can do here is I can click on auto group, which is found under polygroups, but I have them in my A tab. You just go to polygroups and do that. And that just separates these into two separate polygroups. And then I can come here and delete hidden, which is also found under, this is found under modify topology under the geometry tab. So let's see. Okay. So now what we can do is we can bring this back and you can see that that skull no longer goes all the way through the mesh of the bottle, right? But it just barely pokes through. So when I Boolean them together, it's going to essentially, like, let's go ahead and bring this up here. And then if we do Boolean, well, actually, Booleans aren't going to really show anything. But if I click on live Boolean, let's just go ahead and do that separation, or that, not separation, that intersection. So let's do, wait, what am I doing? Wait, okay, this one, that one's hidden. Okay. Okay, there you go. So there's that like barely overlapping. If you subtract, you can see, right, it's not actually going all the way through and it's not going to mess up the inside. And so it might be kind of hard to understand, but like visualize, but I think this is going to be good for us. I just still want it to be poking through slightly. I'll make a few corrections first. So for one, this is going to create like a little bubble. There's going to be a little pocket in here. So I'm going to fix that. Let's go ahead and also bring back this guy. So this guy's going to be in here. Okay. Actually, I don't know if I need to fix that bubble because that red mesh is like my fill mesh. I'm using it to like plug in where I think there's going to be gaps and holes where I don't want them. All right, so what we can do is let's go ahead and now with this bottle, I don't have to, I don't have to hide it anymore. So let's go and put it in a new folder. So we're going to do new folder. We're going to call this one Boolean 2. I don't know. We're going to put them in here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to, again, weld these all together. So we're going to take all three of these guys, and we're going to go ahead and just keep them all on add together operation. I'm going to take this folder, Boolean folder. And then if I come down here, hopefully, if everything worked out correctly, everything should look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the inside really quickly. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch the move tool, press Alt so you can see where the whatchamacallit, the transpose tool shows up. And we'll hold Control and drag right there. And that's just going to mask by topology. So I'm just holding Control and dragging with the move tool selected. I select the move tool just pressing like W on my keyboard, just like in my invert selection. By pressing Control and tapping on the canvas. Press Control W to polygroup the inside. The only reason why I'm doing that is I kind of want to see what the inside looks like. You can see the outside looks fine, but let's look at the inside. And I'm going to just flip it really quickly. So you can see the inside, it was not messed up at all by the Boolean operation, which is awesome. That's what we want. So I'm going to go and flip that again. All right, and bring that all back. So now that that's all working, let's go ahead and I'm going to fill object with one color just to double check some of that stuff. And so now what we need to do is we need to, so one of the things that actually, I'm going to undo this for a second. So we're going to delete and we're going to go back to this Boolean folder. On this glass bottle, I need this to be a little bit higher poly. So let's just subdivide it a few times. Because if it's smoother, I don't want that faceting to show up when I Z remesh it. So what I'm going to do is go to Boolean folder. Let that go. It's going to take a second. Okay, come down here. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. The reason I'm duplicating is I want this one with a high poly detail. And then this one down here, I'm just going to do the Z meshing. All right, so they're both visible. But I'm going to go ahead and solo just so I don't accidentally see this one while I'm Z meshing. So let's go ahead and Z mesh it. We'll start out pretty high. And if it's too high, we can drop down. But with a model with this kind of detail and form, I might not want to really go that high. So yeah, so let's just wait for it to go. Oop, okay, so one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go higher. So let's go up to here. I'm gonna make sure symmetry is turned on so that it's symmetrical. And then we're gonna run ZMesh again. If symmetry is not turned on, this can be kind of a pain in the butt. Or you can get some really goofy topology. I mean, we're still getting some pretty dang goofy topology right there. Yeah, I don't like that. Let's see. Let's go higher. All right. Symmetry's on. Might just go kind of obnoxiously high. Because the nice thing is once you get some decent topology, like the topology forms look pretty good. Then what we kind of feels like it just keeps getting me the same thing. It's down to 40. Let's go to like 78,000. And there's more stuff we could do to optimize this. Like for instance, you could use poly painting to target certain parts of your mesh to be lower, higher poly. Okay, so that's, yeah, I really don't understand why it wants to do that. That's really annoying. But let's go ahead, and so now you can see it's at like 70,000. I'll just drop it a little bit. Let's try Z-meshing it one more time. Usually if you run a Z-mesher on a Z-meshed mesh, well, that sounds very complicated. You can see it usually cleans up a lot better than the first Z-mesher. So you can see like that now we're not getting this weird spiraling, but that looks a little bit better. And then let's just see how low we can go. So let's just go down. Let's go to Z-mesher. So if you want to make this look, and so I'm like looking really at the skull area, and I don't feel like I'm noticing like a huge loss of detail. So what I'm gonna do is, let's just double check some things. Oh, it looks good. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do is I still have this high res mesh, and so my mesh moved around a little bit. So let's just Control Z that back a little bit. So that can happen. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some subdivision levels. So let's say, no, okay, we're gonna get this down to 64. I had it at 24,000 earlier and it was working fine, I think. Let's just Z-mesh this bad boy down. We might have to Z-mesh it one more time because from me Z-meshing, you can see the forms changing just so much, which isn't great. Okay, so we're gonna get our detail back and actually most of our primary forms. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna come back to this one, the Z-mesh one. We're just gonna divide, divide, divide. And I'm primarily going to focus on this area down here. I don't want to do all the projection stuff up there, so I'm just going to focus on just projecting all this detail. So I'm going to go down to the lowest subdivision level. So I just mask this off. I'm just going to smooth that mask out. So I'm not, I'm not going to get a harsh transition. So what I would do is I'll go up a subdivision one at a time, and I'm just going to project all. And sure, who cares? There we go. You can see it move the mesh quite a bit, so that might be something that we're gonna have to Z-mesh again. We'll go ahead and go up a subdivision level. We'll project all again. So let's do project all. Go up a subdivision level, and this is at the point where you're like, okay, do I want all of that extra detail, or do I want this to be, like not quite that carved out? But what we can do here is we'll just project all one more time. So what I would do is at this point, I would go down to my lowest subdivision level and I would look at these polygons and just make sure through that process, because the mesh moved quite a bit, I didn't get anything like really bizarre. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell. So one of the things you can see right there, how much that area right there is changing, because there's like that topology is not quite helping. So what we could do is we could just go, like, you could always export it out at like this higher subdivision level. It's at well, it's 178,000. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Let's see. So let's go up, and then a couple things I would do is, so I would consider playing with ZRemesher until you get exactly what you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and let's turn off RGB, and let's just fill this whole thing with the same color. I could have fixed that a bit better, but what I would do is I would just start kind of like smoothing and cleaning up some of these transition areas, right? Because it feels kind of strange having them. Uh, the really, really sharp areas can feel a little weird, and then I think that also that transition can feel a little weird. So I'm just going to go ahead and smooth that stuff out so it feels like it blends with the surrounding glass a little bit better. Because you're wanting this to feel like it was kind of like sculpted or like molded with the glass. And then we can use, and then I would just use like fill or clay, not fill, clay, to just like fill in gaps, and then just smooth it out. You'll probably want to be careful because you don't want to hit the inside back meshes too much. But yeah, anywhere where you're feeling like it's a little too detailed, you know, we might want to just like kind of drop that down a little bit. And I'm just using any old like shader. I'm using this one that I downloaded that just looks cool because it just it shows all the details, but or enhances the details, but there's so many different shaders you don't have to use this one specifically. If you want to smooth the transition a lot faster, just drop down to a lower subdivision level and then just go up a subdivision level to clean up any like detail lines that show up. But cool. All right, so when you do this process, after you're done, you might want to clean up any other like weird straggling areas. So one thing I probably would do is I feel like this is really thin glass. So if we have that, what I might do is I might try to isolate that inside again. So what I'm going to do is, oops, I'm using that move tool and holding control and dragging on topology to mask it. So let's go ahead and I'm just gonna drag right there. Okay. Ooh. Okay, there we go. Let's go down to subdivision level just so we can smooth that mask. I'm just control tapping to feather the mask. And so the only thing I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to isolate the inside. So I'm just masking off the inside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to inflate it a little bit. So that's just going to make the glass a little thicker. So if you feel like that's something that you need, you can totally do that. And yeah, so what I might consider is I might consider this my low poly. And then 44,000, it's not small. Then what I would do is I would definitely make my displacement maps in here with multi-map exporter. You can make a normal map too, but I would probably just go ahead and use Substance for the normal map, but I would make the displacement map here. Look up a tutorial. There's plenty of tutorials on that because we're going to use that to get all this fine detail right here. We could use, and then when we to look at all your detail in Substance Painter, you're going to go ahead and bake like this one. So here, this is my low res, and then I'm going to duplicate it, go up to a higher res. So this one's going to be a decimated one, and I'm going to just run Decimation Master. So just go Decimation Master, because when you want to bake it in another program, if this is like 2 million, that's going to take forever. Well, depends. I'm going to set this down to like 10, decimate current. Subtool's not yet pre-computed. Oh yeah, my bad. Pre-compute current. So this is just going to store it in memory. It's going to analyze the mesh and kind of understand what its forms look like. Decimation Master, what it does is it takes your mesh and decimate stands for 1/10. So bringing something down to 1/10 of what its original size was. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this down to 10% of its current poly count, but it's going to be made of tries. So it's not something that you want to work on, but it's going to be nice for baking and exporting out a high res mesh. So we're going to go ahead and decimate current. And you can see it looks really weird, right? It gets all these triangles, but it went from 2 million down to 600 million. And if you look close, you can see the details, right? And this shader is really enhancing it. If I switch to like a blend shader, right? You can still see it, yeah. So 10% might be a lot, but at least we went from like 2 million down to 600,000. And then I would just export this one out as like skull bottle, and then we're just going to bottle underscore DEC. Make sure you put it in your downloads folder. or wherever you're storing your stuff. So that would be skull downloads. And so that would be the one that I would use in Substance Painter. Still exporting, it just takes a second. And then this one right here, you know, where before you bake out your high res map, what we need to do is we need to have to smooth that. Okay. What we need to do for this guy right here is we need to UV unwrap it, right? So what I'm going to do is go to lowest subdivision level. We can export. Before you export, you want to make sure, depending on the ZBrush version you're using, there's like an export menu. It might be here, but the setting I'm looking for might be here. It might be under your preferences, import, export. And for export, we just want to make sure group is not turned on, because then it separates your mesh by groups, which is really annoying. I don't understand why it does that. We'll just export this skull bottle low. And then inside of Maya, oops, I already had Maya open, dang it. File, oh, shoot. And I don't have RenderMan installed right now, so I'm gonna go imports. Otherwise I would do some testing, but let's see, low. We would just do UV unwrapping. So I would just do like something pretty simple. Like first, obviously we can just cut that part out, Shift X. Oh wait, let's make sure we got our UV editor pulled up. Let's go to UV editing. Here we go. First, let's go ahead and create. Actually, let's try automatic, see what happens. Okay. So I think for the most part should be good, but what I probably want to do is I want to grab all these shells and let's turn on symmetry. This one is not, your prop model was not centered, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it by topology. So we're going to do symmetry, topology. Mesh is not symmetrical around the selected edge. Oh, interesting. I must have not done it symmetrical at some point. Well, anyways, let's do something really simple or quick. So I'm going to just go ahead and let me look. Let's see. All right, what I'm going to do is just going to do UV shell, and we're just going to select all these guys. Actually, let's do this like this. We're going to select all these guys, unselect all these guys. Okay, so unselect that guy. Don't want to select anything on the inside. Let's unselect that guy. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and do move and sew. Okay, so I just made that kind of like one big piece. All right, so let's see. This down here, I clearly don't need this bottom part right here. It's down there. Yeah, I accidentally grabbed that again. So Shift X, cut that off. Cut off this top part. Shift X. Cut off whatever the heck happened here. Just like that. Oop. Maybe like there. Shift X. Oh, okay. Let's see. Let's merge those guys back together. It's not important. I know I'm just doing this for a demo, but let's see. Mesh. Oh, cut. We'll come back in here. Oh, sorry. Move and sew. Move and sew that one. I'm going to cut this one. Shift X. Oop, Shift X in here. And, oop, okay, maybe I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and cut from here to here. Oops. Here. Oh, okay. Down to here. And here. Down to here. Oop. Okay. Here. Down to here. There we go. Shift X. Crap. Get this one. So from here down to here. Shift X. And we're going to go to UV shell. We're going to select this guy because this is the one that's probably going to be the hardest to unwrap. So we're just going to go ahead and unfold. It's not going to look great, mostly because of these guys over here. So what I'm going to do is hopefully the topology, nope. Unwrapping something from ZBrush can be a bit of a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, let's see. We're going to go ahead and select this to here. I need it to connect back onto itself. I don't need any of this stuff, that stuff. And from here to there. Don't need that stuff. Don't need that stuff. Don't need that stuff. Don't need that stuff. Doop. Okay. Shift X. Probably inside of the nose would be great too. So see if that has anything that we can work with. It would be a lot easier if this thing actually did exported symmetry. Let's see. Okay, Shift X. And then we have this like inside area here, which is a little strange. So what I might do is if this can circle all the way around, that's great. Shift X, same thing on the other side. Because that's going to be really hard to unfold too by itself, so I might as well cut it off. Oops. Shift X, and I'll do the same thing up here. Shift X. Let's see. Shift X, and let's see. I'm going to cut this part right here. Well, let's see. Let's do that. Okay, we'll do that, and we'll do that. Okay, I think that should be fine. Shift X. So we're going to take this, Control U is unfold. Okay. And, you know, if I need to further separate it, I might just, let's go ahead and just cut right there. There's like these like really tenuous islands that are connecting across. Usually we can just separate them out a little bit because then that whole region around it will separate easier. Oops, I didn't do the same thing, but who cares? Shift X, UV shell, Control U, oop, unfold. There we go. And then I can just grab all these little stinkers here, and let's just unfold them. There we go. And if I look at my tension points, I could, you know, kind of cut those up a little bit more to help with it, but for the most part, that's fine. UV shell, let's go ahead and grab everything, grab it. We're going to go ahead and unfold, just make sure, because I didn't unfold those guys over there. And then we're going to go to modify, let's see, we're going to layout and just lay them out. Hopefully your settings, oops, hold shift if you want to open your settings. And we just want to make sure preserve 3D ratios on and scale mode is uniform. That should be fine. And this is all just in one UDIM, right? If I wanted to be in more UDIMs, I would just have to do something like, let's go ahead and do it across like 3 UDIMs, click apply. And that'll try to scale them up as best it can. You can see there's some overlapping, which that's not good. I don't know why it would do that. Shouldn't do that. So let's just pull that up. And then, you know, now we have a low res mesh. Let's turn off that. File, export selection. Let's do FBX because we're going to bring it into Maya. But I'm going to do both. I'm going to do skull underscore, or sorry, substance painter, skull low. File, export selection. Let's do OBJ. Skull low. Yep, I do want to replace it. And I might have to UV and wrap it. But since I haven't modified the topology, the cool thing is, you know, this subtool right here has, you know, subdivision levels, which is going to make my multi-map exporter. When I export my displacement map, it's going to make it really easy because it's just going to displace the low subdivision level against the high subdivision level. I can come down to the lowest subdivision level. Now I can import that skull bottle low. So this one's the one that I UV and wrapped. And you might not notice, but it actually replaced this with the UV and wrapped one, and it kept all the subdivision levels. So then now in Zbrush, I can export my displacement map using the projection workflow that it does, right, with multi-map exporter. And then I also have a low res, and then I also have like the FBX low res, which works better in Substance Painter. So I should be able to go into Substance Painter. We'll just do this really, really fast. Okay, here it is in Substance Painter. I just went ahead and imported my low res mesh. I did have to fix some things in here. Let's see, there was like a weird mesh that I noticed right here. I actually found it in my UVs. I was like, what is this thing? So I found it in here, and there's probably part of the Boolean process. There was like a bubble inside. So I just went ahead and went inside and deleted it. And then I just, some of the UVs were maybe touching or going over the border, so Substance Painter was not happy with it. So what I was doing was I went in here to my settings again. I just gave a shell padding of 5, which means they have a space of 5 units, and a tile padding of 10, which is gives it a border space away from the edge of the tile, and then just re-exported it. And I have to bring it back into Zbrush, of course, and replace my mesh too. And then I just baked my mesh map by selecting this and 4096, and then I just loaded in a res mesh, which was my decimated model. And then I just baked that. And so now I have this really nice, if I remove that normal map, it looks kind of like, oh, actually, let's just get rid of all the maps. There we go. Ambient occlusion map. Oh, I see. All right, so it just looks like this. I also smoothed my normals in Maya, right? I just selected my mesh display, soften edges, because it came in faceted. And then, like I said, I just baked my mesh maps, and it went pretty fast with that decimated mesh. I make sure you bake your mesh maps if you can at 4K or higher, just because these are going to be, it's going to determine the quality of your mesh maps, right? Like if all of your mesh maps are 2K or 1K, then no matter how high your texture resolution is, you're going to get these weird pixelated mesh maps. But let's just go ahead and let that go. You see that curvature map's got a lot of information on it. And that thickness map, you can kind of see there's interesting, like how thin some parts of that mesh can be. So let's see, return to painting mode. Let's see what this looks like with the refraction shader on. So let's go ahead and add absorption color, translucency, and what's the other one? Scattering, sheen, specular, coat, anisotropy. I feel like there's another one, but I can't remember what it is. Translucency, scattering color? No, it's not opacity or emissiveness. Okay, cool. So I'll come down to my layers. Let's see if there's a glass shader by default. Huh. I think they would include a glass material. Come on. Well, let's go ahead and add a fill layer. This is going slow. All right, we'll pull this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and turn the translucency up. See if this works. Probably have to turn it on somewhere else. Let's see, this is new to me. I haven't used the translucency before. So let's see. Got displacement, not doing coat, enable translucency. Oh, there we go. All right, so we can see through our mesh. We can see all that inside there. There's probably, let's see, double-sided, no, bent, no. Text refraction, no. Let's see, let's try turning on shadows. And then what I'm going to do is translucency. Well, I probably want the translucency to be completely up. Let's try a different absorption color. I'm missing something. What could it be? Go back to texture set settings, pull this down, and I'm going to add in occlusion, strippy, coat, displacement, scattering, sheen, specular. Okay, let me go ahead and I'm just going to look this up. Okay, I got it to work. Just it feels a little buggy. I'm probably got some things maybe I need to update like my graphics card or something like that. It was just, I had to enable interior stuff right here. I doubt that's going to change it. Whoa, okay, I don't want subsurface scattering. Let's get rid of that. Cool. So anyways, as you can see, this is all working fine, and hopefully this video helps.